Hello, this is Tony Mansueto. Welcome to Seeking Wisdom and to our ongoing series, Power and the Common Good. Today we are going to be introducing the concept of strategy. We will provide a basic definition. We will look at the distinction between strategy, operational art, and tactics, and briefly discuss different levels of strategy. And then we will look at each of those levels in greater depth in upcoming videos. Before we begin, if you enjoy this video, please remember to give us a like and a subscribe. And if you want to find out more about Seeking Wisdom, you can go to our website. And if you're interested in supporting us, you can go to our Patreon page, which is listed below. Thank you so much. Our first step is going to be to distinguish between three levels of thinking about action. The level that we call strategy, the level that we call operational art, and the level that we call tactics. And it's very important to understand the distinction between these levels. Strategy is the highest level of planning with respect to political action or really any other kind of action. The term strategy comes from the Greek word strategos, which means general, and so it is the sort of thinking that generals are required to do. And of course, in the context of the history of strategy, the concepts derived very largely from the military context, although we will see that we will be applying ideas over the course of this discussion which also come from non-military political thinking and from the business realm and also from the cultural and spiritual realms. So strategy fundamentally is the art of identifying, organizing, cultivating, and deploying the resources you need in order to carry out your mission. So before you get to the point of thinking about strategy, you need to know what you're trying to accomplish. And so there are kind of three broad questions which frame strategy overall. And that is, what resources do I need to realize my mission? In a certain sense, in defining power, two people, a purpose, and a plan, organized people, organized money, organized manner. We've already answered that at the broadest level. But particular missions require a particular configuration of those resources. And so, in order to develop a strategy, you need to be clear on how much money, what kind of money you need, on which people, people with what capacities, um, to what extent is mana or cultural capital essential to your mission, and how, what is the mix between the three sorts of resources. Um, Second, how can I acquire and cultivate those resources? Um, and third, once you have them, what should you do with them? So strategy then is very long term. It is about being in a position to carry out the work of your organization over a long period of time. Now, generally speaking, most people are familiar with the concept of strategy, or at least the term, and they are also familiar with the term tactics. This second and intermediate level, though, is something that they may find new, and that is the concept of operational art. The idea of operational art actually came out of the Soviet Union. It was based on reflection in the Soviet military in the wake of their successes and failures during the Second World War. And operational art involves orchestrating a campaign of actions which are designed to capture a key strategic target or to realize a key strategic aim. I think that while the term may be new, this type of thinking is actually probably more familiar to people than what we're going to call strategy in the stricter sense. Most of the strategic plans that I've seen in organizations, which are essentially a list of strategic objectives and a series of actions or groups of actions that are going to be undertaken to reach them, are actually therefore operational plans. They're not really strategic plans in the narrower sense. Um, so again, there are a couple of questions that you can ask yourself about a situation in order to get a handle on what your operational plan needs to be. What are the most critical strategic targets? And of course, this in turn depends on understanding your adversary's larger strategic estimate and orientation. What are they going to be trying to accomplish and how? And of course, your adversary could be a political adversary, it could be a competitor, it could be any of a variety of different sorts of groups. What is the terrain like, literally and figuratively, through which you're going to have to move in order to get there? What are your adversary's strongholds? What are their weaknesses? And where will you have element of surprise? Where are you going to have to rely on overwhelming superiority? And again, this is a very critical body of knowledge to have. Otherwise, you're not going to know how to navigate through that, again, literal or figurative terrain. And finally, what forces will I need to deploy and when and where? What sequence of actions will they need to take and when? And how will the adversary counter and with what effect? So this is always dynamic. You're not engaging in a set of actions that simply can kind of plow forward. It's much more of a complex decision tree. And we'll talk about operational art in a later video, um, but I wanted to at least make clear what it is so that you understand the distinction between strategy and operational art. Tactics, again, the term tactics also derives from the Greek taxis, which has to do with arranging your forces on the battlefield. And in terms of tactical planning, you're really asking two critical questions. What reaction are you looking for, and how are you going to get it? Okay? You always need to know what you are trying to get other people to do. And that's absolutely essential. It is one of the ways in which we become effective tactically. And of course, if we're not effective at the tactical level, then we will never realize our larger operational plans and strategies. On the other hand, it is a very different kind of thinking because it is focused primarily on understanding the other people involved and how they're going to react, and not primarily your agenda, your aims, your long term vision. Finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about the different levels of strategy because the question of what your organization's strategy is may look very different from the question of what your overall understanding is of perhaps a strategy for broader global social change. So, at the highest level of strategy, we have what I would call global or civilizational strategy. And this pertains to organizing, cultivating, and deploying the resources at the civilizational level that are necessary in order to realize a particular spiritual or civilizational ideal. Okay? So, this is the highest level of strategy. It is a direct global application or extension of social theory. In a very real sense, it is applied social theory. And as we get into this level, you'll see that more clearly. Nobody runs a civilizational strategy on their own, but understanding strategy at this level should inform your thinking around strategic questions at other levels. Second level is grand strategy, and that pertains to organizing, cultivating, and deploying resources on the part of a major global actor with access to resources sufficient that their portfolio extends to all or most sectors of social life. So this is the kind of strategy that is traditionally employed by states, especially great powers, um, major international actors, particularly international political organizations or international corporations will often have what amounts to a grand strategy. Um, I'm not sure how much time we are going to spend with that because we don't have very many people probably in this network who are in a position to exercise grand strategy, but we'll probably talk about it and look at some of the examples that are out there. Next level down is portfolio strategy, and this involves identifying which activities, given your comparative advantage and key constituents, you as an individual or organizational actor should focus on. So we've now jumped from levels that we need to be thinking about, levels that should be informing our decisions in a broad way, to levels at which we absolutely have to have a strategy. Every person who is going to be effective in life needs to have a portfolio strategy. They need to know what activities they are going to invest in. And that decision is based on understanding your comparative advantage. It's based on understanding who you are acting in relation to. Um, Positioning strategy is kind of one level down from that, focusing in a little bit more on how you should position your particular activities in relationship to particular competitors and adversaries, and also in relation to allies and partners. So portfolio strategy involves deciding whether or not you're going to be engaged in a particular activity. So, for example, should you be producing videos on building and exercising power in service to the common good? Um, Positioning strategy involves deciding how you should aim those videos. Are you going primarily for theoretical sophistication? Are you going primarily for accessibility? Who are you aiming it at? Are you aiming it at a broad public? Are you aiming it at people who are um, interested in becoming more conscious about their political engagement, but maybe haven't thought about these things in depth before? Um, so that's the kind of positioning question. And again, we'll talk about both portfolio and positioning strategy in considerable depth. And then the lowest level of strategy is functional strategy, and that looks at how you carry out your basic strategic functions: building mana or authority, gathering cultural capital, organizing people, and organizing money in the context of a particular fundamental global strategy, a grand strategy, or a portfolio or positioning strategy. And once again, if you enjoyed this video, please give us a like, press the subscribe button, and if you want to find out more about Seeking Wisdom, you can do so at our website, which is listed below. And if you're interested in supporting us, you can do so by way of Patreon. Thank you so much.